on average, if you look at the fake Christmas tree, it has a carbon footprint of around 40 to 48 kilograms of CO2, which is, I can tell you, significant, right? And if you look at a real tree, every year it's around...
Speaking of sustainability, a podcast where we talk to frontrunners, innovators, and business specialists on, well, sustainability and where they think their industries are headed, and more importantly, how they can make them more sustainable. Hi there, this is Hanni Larma from Ecochain, and in today's conversation, I'm speaking with my colleague Zazala Quist. In this very special Christmas episode, we are speaking about the big debate, real versus fake Christmas trees, which one has the lowest environmental impact, and how can you make the best decisions during the holiday season in order to be sustainable. And not to forget companies as well. We give some tips on how to communicate about your product sustainability during the holidays. Stay tuned. Welcome, Zazala, back for the fourth time. You're my most...
No, the fourth time already. I'm becoming a regular on this podcast.
Hey, you've become my most reoccurring guest, which is amazing. So also for the listeners, you of course know Zazala, but we're going to be talking about something a little bit different to what we normally talk about on the podcast. Of course, it still has to do with sustainability and also sustainable business, so don't worry about that. And we will be getting into also tips and tricks. But the topic today is going to be about Christmas trees. So
Christmas trees,
a little bit more festive episode. Zazala, do you want to sing along with me to introduce the topic?
Sure.
We're
1, 2, 3.
We're
around Christmas tree, a happy holiday. Yeah, I was getting into it. Why did you stop?
Well,
That was terrible.
basically, we're rocking around the Christmas tree, as you may have just heard our beautiful singing if we didn't cut it out. So the topic was, should you be buying and rocking around a real Christmas tree or a fake Christmas tree? Or none of the above. So to kind of dive into this topic, we have done already a little bit of a deep dive into Christmas trees and their environmental impact. Zazala is, of course, the author of the blog post that we have on this, so she's the perfect person to speak to about this. I'm a Christmas enthusiast, so I'm the perfect person to speak to about this as well. So to combine our knowledge on the topic, Zazala, why is it actually so important to start thinking about this topic and start also having an eye on what we do during the holidays?
I think it's quite obvious here, of course, that festive days and holidays, they're, festive for a reason, right? We all enjoy them. At least we both do enjoy Christmas a lot. It's a great time. And I think there's always like this, voice in the back of our heads that comes up that's like, overconsumption. Do you really need that? Or do you not? No, those kinds of things. I think it's also part of growing up or getting older, at least for me, that every year I'm like, oh God, Christmas gifts. Oh dear. Oh wait, there's a Christmas tree. Like there's so many things that you think of and that you buy that I actually think, even a Christmas tree. It is another thing that you actually don't need, but it just adds to the festivity and the emotions, of course, around Christmas.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, it is an important topic to talk about because, again, also here, how can we make more sustainable choices in the consumption that we make and that we do for holidays? Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. For me, I have always been really a Christmas person, a holiday person. Like you said, when you grow up, or especially for us, we've entered this field of sustainability and also in our personal lives. Yeah, you start to have a different eye on things. Like you mentioned, do we need these things? How much of an impact do they really have? So those are the questions that come up. But at the same time, they're part of your Christmas tradition, maybe, like it is for me. So I really wanted to try to find a way to maintain some of the traditions that I've always had, but also, reinvent them in a way that I'm still comfortable with, knowing the information that I do know about the impact that, all the types of products that we consume around us have. Of course, we at Ecochain have that focus every single day. I know that you did this research, which at least for me was really enlightening. So I think one of the interesting things from the article that's at the very beginning of the blog post is about the Christmas tree graveyards. Not sure if that was a term you coined or if that actually exists in the world.
So it's not you won't find it in a dictionary. Let me just put it that way. Like it is of my own creation, this term. And so fun story, actually, already from when I was a young kid, I already was sustainable back in the days, I guess, but already as a young kid, always after Christmas, like I enjoyed the Christmas tree so much because, the house smells nice. There's lights in the house. And as we already said, we both like Christmas for a long time. But then also something really sad happens after Christmas because I would go out on the streets and then there would just be piles and piles of Christmas trees just laying around, just dead. Well, they're not dead technically yet, but still, it didn't look very nice. So even as a kid already, I would go to my parents and be like, where are all these trees going? And, why can't we keep ours, or can we? Or yeah, that's how I came up with the graveyard concept for Christmas trees. And it kind of is also the reason why I wanted to start this blog and kind of look into it because, it looks very wasteful. It doesn't go into a bin. It just, people put it on the streets. So for me, that was the first of like, okay, so is that really impactful or not? Like, where do they go? And I think that's also, I think for a lot of people actually I speak to, also one of the main reasons that they were started to be interested in this topic. It's funny actually that once waste is actually on the street, people start to talk about it.
Right.
So that is indeed the main reason why I think it's good to dive into this topic, to solve the mystery of the Christmas tree graveyards on the streets. Yeah.
No, for sure. And it is definitely a thing that, like you said, once it's in people's faces, it becomes more of a topic. But I know that you have quite a cute story from your childhood. So if you want to share that, you talked about it with me earlier. So it was a nice example of kind of what you can do to solve these issues as well.
Exactly. And I mean, of course, but we're going to talk about the sustainable tips after all, all the impact talks. This will actually come back. So it is indeed a very funny story. Thank you for bringing it to attention. No, so I come from a family of like all these like agricultural, professions, and my dad is a forester. And so in the village where I grew up during Christmas, they knew that my dad was into trees. So every year after Christmas, before I started, noticing these graveyards everywhere, my dad was always quite open in with friends and in the street about that he hates that all these Christmas trees are on the streets. And so people started noticing, and then over the years after Christmas, our yard, actually, our front yard would just like pile up with people just dumping trees in our yard because they were like, oh, that's William, he loves trees. Let's just dump them there because what else are we going to do with it? So actually, I talked about this with my father yesterday. I think we have at least 8 adopted Christmas trees in our our yard, and he put them in the ground. A couple of them are potted, and we switch around every year of which one we're going to put inside.
Oh,
So I think that's a funny story.
no, totally. I think that's so cute. And I think, it's great to have that reputation of, really caring for our resources and doing something
Yeah.
about it as well. But before we get to indeed the tips about what you can do and what is maybe our suggestions for, what you can do during the holiday season to make sustainable decisions, I think what would be interesting, well, for people we know already, that people ask us this often, can we kind of break down the impact that a regular tree, quote unquote regular tree, so a real tree from the forest versus a plastic reusable tree, what the impact is, where does that impact come from, and how can you compare them, and ultimately which one ends up being the better option in the long run?
Yes, definitely. This is the answer everybody's been waiting for and everybody looks for. Also here, though, before we dive into it, it's always good to have a disclaimer that no tree is the same. but still you have trees coming from Denmark. If we are situated, of course, in the Netherlands. So for us, a lot of trees come from Denmark, real trees, but also from Germany. But actually also the amount of trees that's cultivated in the Netherlands has also increased over the last couple of years. So for example, the Christmas tree I bought last year on the little fair in the heart of my city where I live, all the trees actually are from the Netherlands. But it's always good to keep that in mind. And in general, if of course you measure impact of a product, and no product is the same unless of course they happen to have the same production location and the same transport, which happens as well. So it's good to keep that in mind, right? But yeah, if you look at us in the Netherlands, on average, if we first start with the fake tree. So a fake tree, they say, right? So it also depends on where you are in the world, is used around 4 to 6 years on average. So you have a tree and you can reuse it. So it's a fig tree, 2 meters tall. You buy it at, I don't know, here you have Intratuin or other kinds of places. It looks great, but usually people use it for 4 to 6
That
years.
actually surprises me. Sorry, I'm just step in there, but it actually surprises me because 4 to 6 years doesn't seem like that long for keep something that is meant to be like a alternative to cutting something down from nature. So, because obviously, as you're probably gonna get into, I know that to produce a fake tree, that actually causes, of course, quite a bit of impact and plastic.
Yeah.
And these types of things. So that surprises me, and I hope I'm already putting it out there. If you do buy a fake Christmas tree, try to use it longer than average.
Yeah, just a tad bit longer than 4 or 6 years. No, I mean, it did surprise me too. So it's a fair point. But I also actually know from a lot of people, of course, we are in this sustainability bubble, right? So we immediately think about this. But if you look at just purchasing behavior from consumers, right? People want new things. I especially noticed that in the Netherlands, people really like to have new things in their house to change things up. And the reason why, as well, that's also interesting. Most people buy a fake one. It's just because it doesn't have bugs. You don't have to water it. It often, well, not always, but looks very nice as well if you get a nice one, right?
Mhm.
There's fake snow on it, you can, which is nice too. It's snow in your house. But those are mainly the reasons that people do it, for the aesthetics and low maintenance, right?
Yeah.
And you could just take it out of your attic or whatever under your bed and just put it on. So only over the recent years have I heard of more people that are more conscious about also the environmental aspect of it.
Right.
Well, yeah, in that sense, it's just people have different motivations. But yeah, I was shocked as well. But that's just mainly because I work at Ecochain and I know also what's going on back in the back of everything.
Okay,
Right?
I'll
So,
let you get back to the impacts.
well, yeah, okay, all right. So impact, yes. So okay, so we have a fake Christmas tree. It's like 2 meters tall, which I believe, well, according to a lot of Dutch research, is the most sold actually for fake Christmas trees. The 2 meters one, they're very impressive. And then we're comparing it to a 2 meter tall real Christmas tree, right? Either chopped or potted. We'll get into the difference later. And then if you buy one in the Netherlands, it either comes from usually Denmark or Germany or the Netherlands. Of course, there's some difference in there, but those are mainly the types of trees that we buy here. So, on average, no tree is the same. On average, if you look at the fake Christmas tree, it has a carbon footprint of around 40 to 48 kilograms of CO2, which is, I can tell you, significant, right? So it's more,
It's a lot.
it's a lot, yeah. And if you look at a real tree, but that's used 1 year, right? So we're now looking at a tree that you also get rid of, the graveyards, remember them. Every year, it's around 3.1, 3.5 kilograms of CO2. Yeah, that's a big difference. That already says, it shows already this is average again. So I looked into different studies that were performed, and also, some of our own specialists looked at it. This is an average, right? So again, some Christmas trees might be produced somewhere else or more local, then it might be different. But on average, the difference is huge. So you would say that, a fake Christmas tree is like 16 times more. It has a 16 times larger carbon footprint than a real one. So I think that was quite groundbreaking. But of course, if a tree is just used once, then we also need to look at, the annual carbon footprint then of a fake tree. but that would still also be really high. It would be 8 kilograms of CO2 every year compared to a new tree that's just 3 or 3.1. So the difference really is quite big in that sense.
And I think it kind of goes back again to the how long you use it, right? If you're comparing the use of a tree that you buy every single year, which is was 16 times less than buying the fake Christmas tree. But if on average the calculations are based off of people who use it, I don't know, for 6 years or something. If someone uses it for, I don't know, let's say 20 years, I'm just being optimistic. I think that would also change the impact quite significantly as well.
No, definitely. So at least, so this is from like, there's one LCA study specifically also from a group in Canada, and they also for their specific fake versus real tree study, they also said, you need to use the fake tree for at least 20 years. And I know that also from Carbon Trust and other sources, they say, it's always debatable between 10 to 20 years. You have to use a fake tree to be able to kind of like,
mitigate.
Mitigate in a way. Yeah. So indeed, but again, there, it also depends on what kind of real tree you get, and also how you treat that real tree as well. Because, for example, actually, my Christmas tree, which is on right now, it looks very lovely. It's a bit smaller because 2 meters in my house, I thought that was a little bit too much for now. But I bought this. This was my first actual Christmas tree that I bought, the real one, last year. And I bought it potted. So it's not cut off like usually a lot of people do. Of course, not everybody has the space as well to keep a potted real Christmas tree. Not everybody has a garden or a balcony or whatever. But I do luckily have a garden. And so I was able to, keep it. And now I'm reusing it again.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's also, either you keep a fake tree for 20 years, which is great, a good investment if you get a good one. Or you can buy a potted one and even put it back like my dad. Keep it, adopt it, and treat it well in your garden and reuse it every year. So I think that's also really nice.
That is, and I also have a potted Christmas tree this year. I'll see if I can show you, but it could be that I.
Nice!
It's very cute.
Yes, that's very lovely.
But the thing with that is like I think it's such a great option. Like you said, it really does lower the impact because it's not something that you buy and use it. You have to buy it every single year again. It's something that you can keep on your balcony or in your garden if you have space for that. So that's my aim.
For your parents, bring it to your parents.
I do admit that I did this last year and I didn't survive. It didn't survive year. Unfortunately, I've learned my lesson and I think I know how to take better care of it. I've really researched what I need to do when I put it back outside after the Christmas season is over and how to take care of it. So I'm hoping that this one will last me for many, many, many years and that the impact will then as a consequence be lower. But it's always, there's a lot of nuance in these things. Indeed, if you buy the potted tree, but you can't keep it for the next, and it's essentially the same thing. I think there's a lot of things that make a big difference. And I'm hoping that with this year that I will manage to keep it for.
I hope so too. Tip from my father, the plant man, the tree man, the Christmas tree adopter. He always says that if you get a real tree and you keep it inside, at least then already it's really crucial that you treat it well, because that also kind of already says how it's going to be in your garden. So you have to give it like half a liter for at least the smaller sizes that we have, which I think is, mine is 1 meter. I think yours is also around 1 meter high. Had to give it like half a liter of water every other day. But if you have a bigger tree, then you have to give it like at least 1.5 to 2 liters of water every day. So that's important. Yeah. And if you put it in a pot in your garden, it should be a big one. It's a tree, it's a tree. So it needs space.
I learned my lesson from last year and I'm very, very motivated to do well this year. So
good. I think my father would be proud of us.
Yes. I think, this is such an interesting conversation, I think, because during the holidays, like there's a lot of things, but the tree for me is the focal point. And I wanted to find a way to know if I'm also making the right decisions. I think that kind of goes back as well. Like, of course, here we've been talking a lot about ourselves and about what we as consumers can do. But I think it does go back to companies as well, and them taking responsibility for also knowing the impact of the products, the Christmas tree or the
Yeah,
Christmas
definitely.
tree that they're selling, and also communicating about that, knowing that firstly knowing the impact of their products,
Mhm.
and secondly communicating about that to the consumers that they can also make better decisions.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, I mean it's a really good point as well. Because even like again, if we go into the local market that I have here, where I buy my Christmas tree, where I bought my first and hopefully last real Christmas tree, they also like this year. I just went to look because it's also where it's a nice place to be. And I've also noticed now that salespeople that sell their trees, as we already said, all of them are local. So, which wasn't the case that I heard at least from someone walking there 5 years ago. Then, there were people there and they were selling trees from Denmark,
Yeah.
right? Which is still good, but it's further away than the Netherlands. And now all the trees there are cultivated in the Netherlands. So, and it's used as also an important part of sales for them. And also people are very curious about it, and I mean, I was one of them, but I also noticed a lot of other people who are asking indeed if they buy a potted one, how do I keep it alive? So this is good. And I think that both for consumers, but indeed also for companies, that this also shows, right? People are curious and they want to do better themselves. And I think a big part of that responsibility also lies indeed with, yeah, if you make a fake Christmas tree, make it look pretty and make sure that people know that they should keep it for a long time, for example, right? So this is just a very
And make it
Christmas
durable,
example.
make it durable. Durability in products, especially products that are meant to last a long time.
Yeah.
So, for example, with this Christmas tree, if it's only at the same point as buying a real tree at the point of 20 years, it should
Mm,
last you at least 20 years.
yeah.
So I think it's a really important point for the companies that are producing these products. They need to be
Mm,
durable. Otherwise, they won't last the consumer, and then they'll buy a new one, and the impact, doubles again. So
yeah. Yeah. And of course, you can't control everything, right? So, yeah, if people get bored of their Christmas tree after 6 years, you can tell them, like, hey, keep your tree for as long as possible. But then still, if they're bored of it after 6 years, yeah, those are risks you'll have anyway. I mean, there are loads of companies, also non-Christmas tree companies, right, that really want to educate their consumers on what it means if you would get rid of it before the end of its life, or how you can extend the life, or how you can, for example, if I look at the Christmas tree, how can you make sure that even after 6 years, you can still bring something new to your Christmas tree, add some ugly, I don't know, golden chains here, or, so it's also fun to see how and where you can kind of like get your consumers to also be more conscious about it. So it's definitely something that companies, I think, shouldn't, be scared of in a way. It's fun.
no, and I mean, more and more, there's also coming up like rental models. I think there's even, I
Mm,
think it was mentioned in the article, there's even rentals of real trees. Am I,
yeah.
assuming?
Yeah, amazing. I know. Yeah, that's true. So my dad, trendsetter. Well, actually, another funny story. Our neighbors in the village, they also use one of the trees from our garden.
Oh,
So this is the
rental.
business model you should all go for. Exactly. It's fantastic. No, it's true. You actually have rent a tree. So if we look back at the waste phase of products, right? If you would waste a Christmas tree, which happens a lot, right? So at least for me, in this case, the municipality, it comes pick up old Christmas trees. So there's one day, I think in January, where you can put it on the street and then the municipality comes pick it up. And usually then it ends up either in a landfill, although that also depends though, in which country you are. In the Netherlands, we don't have that much space. So actually a lot of the trees are incinerated or chipped even, but they're usually reused and that's good. So if they are incinerated or chipped or those kinds of things, the CO2 that a tree takes in is just released back again. So it's not really making a difference. If it ends up in a landfill, though, you can always ask as well to the municipality or people where you are, wasting your tree, like what happens, because landfills are less good because then they're like methane, whatever. It's
Yeah.
a bit more, a bit more sciencey, but that's not as good. But indeed, if you have it potted and the tree doesn't die, that's also important, and you take good care of it. Or if you rent it and then somebody else takes care of it for the rest of the year, who knows what they do, which is also quite nice. That's a really good option because, you're preventing the production or cultivation, not, in this big scale, but at least it's one tree less that needs to be cultivated.
Right.
And that's good as well, even though it has a lower impact. Still, it's less, it's zero impact. And yeah, it can just keep on sucking in CO2, this little tree, which is great as well. So indeed, adopting is good, or yeah, keeping it in a pot. That's also a great option.
Yeah. And I think what you already mentioned earlier was that not all trees are also made the same.
Nope.
So some of them are more local than others. We actually posted about this topic on the Ecochain Technologies LinkedIn profile, and someone
Yeah.
commented underneath, which I also found a really interesting comment. It's not based off of the research that we did, but it's logically makes quite a lot of sense that he suggested using a tree that is local to the environment you're in. So maybe,
Mhm.
I'm originally from Finland. Maybe for me, that means, the traditional Christmas tree, but maybe someone who's in, I don't know, Hawaii, could do something more local. I don't know what that would be actually. But
Tropical tree.
kind
Why
of
not? I
tropical thing.
mean,
I don't know.
yeah.
I just found it quite an interesting suggestion as well to try to see like maybe the things that we're talking about don't resonate with you if you live in a different part of the world, where we're saying buy a local Christmas tree and you're like, we don't have one. So I don't know. You can
Yeah.
start a cool new tradition like that as well for your family.
I think that's a really good point. And also there, the localization is a very good, thing as well for sustainability. Often you see that transport doesn't even cause that much of an impact if you look at the full life of a product, and also for a tree, even for a fake Christmas tree. Most of the impact comes from production, right? It's a lot of plastic, and for a normal tree as well. The transport distances aren't even that big usually when it comes to impact, which surprises a lot of people, but it also says something about, the production. But even there, every bit helps. So if you, instead of getting a, a Christmas tree from Denmark, get one from your local Christmas tree cultivator, that's also a really good thing already.
Mm.
Also on a social level,
Yeah.
you're boosting also the local economy here. And I also really like this example from this person who commented. I also know that there's people who are, very innovative. They only use branches, for example. So they make their own kind of like DIY branches, Christmas tree. Yeah, there's so many nice options. Then they're just one Google away. But it's always good to see indeed how long will you be using it and how will it be wasted. That's very important. And that's also, again, very important for companies, right? How long will people use your product and how is it wasted?
Yeah.
Because even for Christmas trees, it makes a difference if it's burnt or chipped or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of nuance, and I think that's the one thing that I've of course noticed in general working at Ecochain with all
yeah.
kinds of products that we use. Nuance is so present in everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, whether that's, is it shipped from China, but is it that you only ship it once because you use it for 30 years?
Right.
And maybe for the Christmas tree, you need to ship it to your house from Denmark, and then you need to ship it back to the place where it's incinerated. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
there's so many nuances, and I think in the end, if I can try to sum up what the article that you brilliantly wrote says, I guess it's about how long are you using your fake Christmas tree, if that's what you're doing,
Mhm.
and how are you sourcing your real Christmas tree, and are you able to put it back into nature? Those are the main things that really impact how big of the environmental impact is.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, conclusion, the big conclusion, the most sustainable thing is not buying a Christmas tree at all. So that is, of course, the most sustainable option. But if you do indeed look at how long you use your fake Christmas tree, I know actually that from a family member, they have their fake Christmas tree ready for 24 years, I think. So they're doing great.
Yeah.
And it still looks good because it was a very good one that they bought. Or yeah, indeed, ask where your product comes from if you buy a real one, and see how you're gonna maintain it or how you're gonna waste it. That's very important. And do what's best for you in that sense as well. Indeed, with like the comment, like wherever you live, what works best for you, and then look at, okay, how can I make that most sustainable? And if you don't need a new fake tree, why buy it? This is also like a consumption thing, right? In the end. just buy a good product that lasts for a long time, which I also think is better for your wallet anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Zazala. I really enjoyed this, and I hope we can do a nice follow up with your 5th episode soon.
Wow.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited.
Well, I mean, the podcast is also already on for such a long time. There's so many episodes already. So I think this is also a really nice one. A great topic. Thank you for having me on, I believe, one of the last podcasts for 2022.
Will be the
Wow.
last one.
Oh, yes, the last podcast for 2022, and I can be on it.
Yes.
I'm honored.
Much, and yeah, happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too, and to everybody listening.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this chat. If you enjoyed this episode, please click here to subscribe or here for more recent episodes. Bye bye.